Alright, hello, my name is Jacob Kuhlman, and this is my oral presentation for CHE 650 Hazardous Waste Engineering Seminar. Thought I'd start out with a little about me and why I picked my topic. I'm going to be talking about just a general overview of nuclear energy, issues surrounding it, etc. Just a little about me and some insight on why I picked this topic. I'm a recent chemical engineering graduate at Kansas State University. I'm hoping that pending a few classes, of course, hoping that is upheld. I've had a strong interest in nuclear power and nuclear issues since childhood, stuff like the atomic bomb, the Cold War, nuclear fission, nuclear fusion, all the history surrounding it, all the science surrounding it has always just kind of fascinated me. It's always been something I had a great interest in, and when I saw the seminar in the 2006 segment, I felt like it was something that I wanted to talk about and write a report about. I also have a strong interest in energy issues. Our economy is completely dependent on accessible, cheap energy, and just how we get that, how we get it now, how we're going to get it in the future, all the different issues there are with ways that we get energy, ways that we generate power, ways that we transport ourselves from point A to point B. It's all very complex. It's got a lot of just grab bag everything. There's science behind it, there's economics, there's politics. It's just something that's always really interested me, and I feel like that nuclear energy is a huge part of that. So, nuclear power, how does it work? We got a nice little illustration there of the nuclear power plant in The Simpsons that Homer works at. It's driven by nuclear fission reactions, which is just a splitting of an atom. You bombard an atom with neutrons, typically uranium, and what you get is multiple nuclei. You get a lot of different stuff, and then you get a lot of energy released that can be quantified through Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared. One of the big things about uranium as a fuel is that it has a huge energy density. It is completely off the charts. Like, we're talking a factor of 10 to the 6th above other types of energy. For example, uranium generates 83,140,000 megajoules per kilogram, whereas the traditional favorite, coal, only generates 24 megajoules a kilogram. So just a huge difference there. We're talking a factor of 1 million, and that's just, with our societal energy demands only going up over the years, it's a pretty startling number, something that you got to take note of. So I guess the next question is, how prevalent is nuclear power, both abroad, worldwide? It's something that the U.S. has had a interest in since after World War II, after the Atomic Energy Commission was created. There was a lot of movement to build nuclear power plants in the 60s and 70s. There was a lot, over 100, there's exactly 100 now, I think, in this country. And in the U.S., we now get about 20% of our power from our commercial electricity generation from nuclear power. You see all the other old favorites in there. You got coal, you got natural gas, renewables starting to creep up on there, but about 1/5 of all of our energy comes from nuclear power at this point. Worldwide, however, large variety. You have France there with almost 3/4 of their power coming from nuclear energy. You can see the U.S. there at about 20%. The width of the bars is indicative of how much is used total. So, then you got a bunch of other Eastern European countries up there with France, a lot of old Soviet republics. So, nuclear power is something that is used quite a bit worldwide. There's a lot of developing countries and developed countries that are trying to reinvest in nuclear power for a lot of reasons. So I guess the answer is why? Why nuclear? Why are some people going with nuclear? Why did the U.S. invest so heavily in nuclear power? It's very safe. There have been very few accidents at nuclear power plants, much lower than other comparable power plants, your traditional coal, your traditional natural gas power plants. Very few fatalities. Another big thing is that it's carbon neutral. It does not have any emissions. It works in the same way as any other power plant. You get heat, and then you use that heat to boil water, and you get steam, and the steam turns a turbine. Except in a nuclear power plant, rather than that coming from the combustion of fossil fuels, it comes from a nuclear fission reaction. Like I said before, it has a very, very, very high energy density. A small amount of uranium can just release a huge amount of energy. It's off the charts compared to every other fuel source that has been used in the United States and worldwide. You can just have, like I said, 1 kilogram of uranium can get over 83 million megajoules. So since we got all those positives of nuclear power, why aren't we doing more of it? Why have we not just completely switched over to it? And I think that picture right there shows a good deal why. That is a picture of two people dealing with some low-level nuclear waste. And just judging by those hazmat radiation suits, it's pretty nasty stuff. The waste is highly, highly radioactive, especially the stuff that was used inside of the reactor. And it has a very long lifespan. It can last thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Plutonium-239, one of the byproducts of nuclear fission of uranium-235, has a half-life of 24,000 years. Like I said, it lasts forever. I say forever in quotation marks because it obviously doesn't last forever, but it's on a scale that's just not usually talked about for humans. We don't usually have to think thousands and thousands of years ahead. I mean, we think in terms of years and decades. The idea that we have a project, like we're undergoing these projects right now that lasts thousands and thousands of years, that there's going to be that risk all that time out, is something kind of unprecedented for us. And because of that highly radioactive waste, no one wants to deal with it. No one wants to put it in their backyard. No one wants to have that near them. There's complications with transporting it. There's complications with the container you put it in when it gets where it's going to go. So, there's two types of nuclear waste. There's high level, which comes from spent fuel rods, anything directly used in the reactor core. It's very, very, very radioactive. A lot of nuclear waste has it releases per hour 20 times more than the lethal dose for humans. And that's just astounding. This is incredibly, incredibly nasty stuff. If it gets into the environment, that can cause huge issues. If people come into contact with it, they're probably going to die, and fairly quickly. Then there's the low-level waste, which is just anything that's tangentially used in the process. Like, you wipe something related to the process with a rag, that rag is low-level waste. And most low-level waste is actually produced in industry, in the U.S. Department of Energy. It's all kinds of stuff. Like I said, it's anything that comes in contact with radioactive, any kind of nuclear applications in medicine, for example. Anything with that is low nuclear waste. And the high level, compared to the high level, it's a relatively small concern. Most of this stuff has a half-life of, their half-lives are measured in the tens and hundreds of years, as opposed to the multiple thousands of years for like plutonium-239. And we have 4 storage facilities around the country for low-level waste. And they take low-level waste from, they all have agreements, they're in 4 different states, and they all have agreements with other places. You know, it's pretty basic stuff there. So what do we do with the high-level waste? Like I said, it's really nasty stuff. Nobody wants to deal with it. So we don't do a whole lot with it. It's stored on site in cooling tanks for the most part. So each and every nuclear power plant stores in its own waste. And that has to stay there indefinitely. There's nowhere to put it elsewhere. We don't currently have a disposal site anywhere in the United States, and because of how nasty the stuff is, like I said, no one wants it. No one wants to have this in their backyard. No one wants to deal with it. There's just a picture of, generic nuclear waste container. No dedicated high-level nuclear waste storage in the United States. We tried to have a dedicated waste storage once. It's called Yucca Mountain. It's in Nevada. There's a picture of Yucca Mountain. It was scheduled to be the site for storage and disposal of high-level nuclear waste, but as you can imagine, the locals did not want it. Senator Harry Reid, former Senate Majority Leader, led the effort to not have this in Yucca Mountain, not have this storage space in Nevada. He fought hard and eventually got it defunded. It was scheduled to go into operation in 1998, and it's 2014, and nothing's there. Nothing's been moved from their spots nuclear power plants, and it doesn't really look like it's going to change anytime soon. So, still don't have an on-site disposal. We don't know when, we still don't have a disposal site in the United States. We don't know when that will happen, and that is obviously a fairly big concern. The thing about nuclear waste is it provides a very unique engineering challenge. Like I said, this is a scale that people are just not usually dealing with. They're not thinking thousands and thousands and thousands of years ahead. When you're storing nuclear waste somewhere, you got to think, okay, how long is this container going to last? How long is this going to hold this stuff in place? Like, what's going to happen after X amount of years? Two, there's just the concern of when it's that far down the road. We don't know what the world's going to be like. We don't know what's going to happen. We can't begin to predict anything, really. How do you design, say, a sign for someone that you don't know? How do you design a sign that says this is bad stuff? You don't want to get into this for someone that might not even speak anything or the same language as you. It's hard. There's a transportation issue. Even if we do get a site, how do we get all of the waste from across the country there? People they aren't going to want that going through their backyard. Again, there are all sorts of concerns. There's a concern if there's some kind of failure on the way there. There's a concern for a potential terrorist attack, attacking nuclear waste. Like I said, this is horrifying stuff that will kill you. I think the plan for Yucca Mountain was for most people to move by rail, but it remains to be seen if something like that will ever get off the ground. And again, we just keep coming back to this. Where do you put it? No one wants it. You don't want nuclear waste near you. But what if something goes wrong? Why should that be your problem? So instead of having a dedicated spot, we just have it stored at all of these nuclear power plants across the country. There are a few potential solutions that are probably out of the realm of this report, since I think I'm getting up there in time, but you can reprocess the fuel and recover some of the radioactive material from it and reuse it in the reactor. But again, in the U.S., we do not currently do that. It's done in other countries with some degrees of success, but there's a lot of legal red tape to do anything pertaining to nuclear power in the United States. And then there's also some places are investing in breeder reactors, also known as fast neutron reactors. There are a couple currently used for commercial power production in Russia, but there's all kinds of safety issues with these. What they do is they're able to breed more fuel from their waste. So it's pretty incredible, but again, there's all kinds of safety issues with them, and it's probably pretty unlikely we'll ever see one in the United States. So in summary, nuclear energy is a carbon neutral, safe way to generate large amounts of electricity, and I believe that it will be important in the future. There's all kinds of concerns with emissions. There's all kinds of people wondering, what are we going to do if we decide to cut back on fossil fuels? How are we going to do it? Solar energy is not commercially viable. Wind energy is not viable. They're not very efficient relative to fossil fuels. What do we do? I think that nuclear power could be a stopgap. But really, we need to figure out some kind of long-term solution for the waste. We need to figure out where to put it. We need to figure out how to get it there. We need to find someone that will let us have it there. And that's just, like I said, I don't think that's something that's going to happen in the near future. We'll see what happens in the coming years, especially with the Republican-controlled Congress after the midterm elections. The Bush administration was in great favor of nuclear power, so maybe we'll see Yucca Mountain get refunded, or there'll be another site somewhere, but who knows? Like I said, it could be useful to stopgap to attempt to mitigate CO2 emissions until renewable fuels are developed and are competitive, until they're profitable. So that is all I have. If you have any questions or comments, you can direct them to my email address right there, jcoolman78@gmail.com. I'd just like to say I enjoyed this course. I enjoyed researching and learning more. I wish I would have had an opportunity to do a little longer seminar, a little longer thing here and go more into detail on things, but I really enjoyed it. So that's all I have. So thank you.